Hi, my name is Rebecca Bauer, and I did my research on rooftop gardens and edible native plants. The purpose of my research was to look at ways of increasing rooftop gardens in current urban farming in Cincinnati and increasing edible native plants used in urban farming in Cincinnati. The research questions I looked at are how are rooftop gardens used for increasing jobs and urban farmer success, how to increase the quantity and knowledge of them in Cincinnati, and how to increase understanding and use of native plants in urban farming. The focus area of my topic was food, and the priority action was jobs, specifically looking at training urban farmers and gardeners ways to increase success in response to issues caused by climate change. The focus area of food's goal was to create a food economy in the city that was equitable for all, specifically looking at things like increasing local agriculture and production and in distribution, and to developing living wages for people working the agricultural sector. The priority actions goal was to increase the amount of jobs in food and agricultural areas by 20% in the next 4 years. They are working to do this by creating more spaces and opportunities for urban agriculture to help bring in and interest younger people in the career of farming. Living wages and the ability to grow food even amidst climate change are some important strategies for this goal. The trends of rooftop gardens in Cincinnati currently is that there are some around the city. Most of the notable places were schools. In other cities like Chicago or Toronto, they are pretty common. Since their green roof law requiring new buildings larger than 21,000 square feet to cover a significant portion of the building with vegetation, Toronto has had 640 green roofs added to their city. For native plants, many different states have organizations and resources for eating native plants. One is the Ecological Landscape Alliance for New England. They are an organization that promotes sustainable landscape design and construction practices. They have resources for different native plants, how they can be eaten, and when they can be harvested. There's also the California Native Plant Society. They work to conserve native plant biodiversity in California. They have resources looking at what native plants can be used in home gardens. Some examples of these are miner's lettuce and golden currants. Some equity implications that should be considered for this project are making sure that the food is distributed well so that everyone in Cincinnati will be able to access these gardens and the food grown. The cost of implementing and upkeeping these gardens and native plants should be considered as well. How the installation, seeds for the gardens, and upkeep will be maintained, and if these will be community volunteer gardens or if some will be available for private gardening. Currently, the Green Cincinnati Plan is working with the Common Orchard Project and Cincinnati Permaculture Institute for training farmers for climate change. The Common Orchard Project works to plant small orchards around Greater Cincinnati. This contributes to increasing urban agricultural areas and bringing opportunities to young people and creating job opportunities through stewardships for these orchards. The Cincinnati Permaculture Institute is a nonprofit organization that is a network of urban farms, gardens, and more. They promote permaculture practices and green building technologies. They have classes about gardening and permaculture, and they sell edible plants that are native and other plants that do well in our region. They help increase adaptability to climate change, encourage urban farming, and the use of native plant species. Currently, there are a few different rooftop gardens around the city. At UC, there are multiple around campus, on top of Zimmer Hall, Lindner Hall, and Proctor Hall. These help reduce the urban heat island effect, increasing biodiversity, reducing runoff, and more. Another example is the Rothenberg School rooftop garden. They help inspire younger people and create an interest in gardening and farming. They also distribute the produce they harvest from their garden to families. A last example is the Mercy Health West Hospital. They have a green roof that covers 2.5 acres and is made up entirely of Ohio native plants. These help reduce some effects of climate change and improve adaptability. The addition of edible plants to some of these gardens could further these goals. Some benefits of rooftop gardens would be that they reduce the urban heat island effect. They provide shade for the roofs, which reduce the temperature of the buildings and the surrounding air. They combat the loss of suitable soil and space to grow food, and they help create a community through being able to meet and connect with many different people. Both the gardens and the use of edible native plants help increase food access and security, which can be heavily reduced by climate change by affecting growing seasons and survivability of the crops. More food being grown and surviving better in these gardens helps increase food security, and this food can be distributed faster through being local. And native plants can also help reduce the cost of green roof installations. Some drawbacks are if citizens of Cincinnati would have interest in these and how many people would want to contribute to these gardens. There are many different factors that need to be considered when installing a green roof. The roof size and modifications needed to support a green roof, cost of repairs and seasonal upkeep, and need of professionals to maintain it need to be considered. The monetary cost and extensive planning required when looking to install one can be a deterrent. There's a section of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Cincinnati about urban agriculture. Already having information about what is required and allowed for urban agriculture in Cincinnati is helpful for identifying what needs to be added and what can already be done with these projects according to the current code. And the Supporting Urban and Innovative Farming Act is a federal act that helps increase access to funding and federal support for urban farmers. This helps with receiving grants and funding for the government to help implement this project. The Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018 created the Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production Advisory Committee, which helps create policies for urban and indoor agriculture. Some of the current partners of the Green Cincinnati Plan are the Common Orchard Project and the Cincinnati Permaculture Institute. Some possible partners for this are the Cincinnati Nature Center, 80 Acres Farm, and Isaiah 55 Inc. The Nature Center has programs about native plants and creating native gardens and resources about native planting. Isaiah 55 is a community garden in Cincinnati, and they are already working to provide food justice and security. And 80 Acres is an indoor farm that is local to Cincinnati, and they use vertical farming techniques. These organizations would be good for planting gardens and what plants to use, and working with the encourage more native plant use. Some examples of cities with successful green roofs are Chicago and Tokyo. In Chicago, as of 2022, there were 500 green roofs in the city and 13 rooftop gardens. This came from a cityscape plan in the 90s that worked with NGOs and neighborhood organizations to plant trees in vacant lots, which was helped by the Sustainable Development Policy that required private developers to be more sustainable to get city assistance. In Tokyo, the idea of rooftop gardens was implemented to lower city temperatures in Japan. Legislation was created requiring new buildings of certain sizes to plant gardens covering a fifth of that size. Some examples of native plant use are the North Georgia Native Plant Nursery and Wild Ridge Plants in New Jersey. The North Georgia Nursery grows many plants native to Georgia that you can't find anywhere else to help preserve the biodiversity and native wildlife of the area. And the Wildlife Ridge Plants Nursery grows native plants from seeds found in local areas. They grow forest herbs and meadow plants, as well as edible and medicinal plants. The types of funding options that are most common for urban farming and gardening are grants from both the local and federal government. One Cincinnati-specific grant was available for urban agriculture in some specific Cincinnati neighborhoods. Another example of a local government grant was one for Dayton to encourage urban agriculture. Grants from local organizations to encourage urban agriculture are also a possibility. An example is the B.W. Wells Scholarship Fund. These types of grants can be implemented from different organizations in Cincinnati. There are also federal grants like the Urban Agriculture and Innovation Production Competitive Grant. Applying for federal grants to implement these ideas is another possibility. For this project, I recommend surveying the area of Greater Cincinnati to look at buildings that would be optimal for implementing green roof, as well as identifying who would be most interested in using and maintaining these gardens. If there are citizens that would want access to these on their apartment, or if places like schools and other educational places would be best for this type of plan currently. I would also consider incentives to encourage more people to pursue